Hey, what's up guys, it's WiseGuyVito here, and today I have another tier list video for you guys. This will be the primary tier list against the Automaton faction post 60-day update, and this is also kind of post the newest war bomb that just came out. I think it's called like Enforcers of Truth or Seekers of Truth or something like that, where we got two new weapons. We got the Reprimand and the Halt, a shotgun and an SMG, but it's more like an assault rifle, and also we got the Constitution. So I kind of want to give you my thoughts on where things kind of lie right now as far as the meta goes with weapons, what weapons are really good against the Automaton faction, what weapons are not really good against the Automaton faction, and maybe you should be using on the bug front or definitely need to see some changes going forward. But as always, like, share, and subscribe, guys. It greatly helps me out. Definitely pushes me to make more videos and content in the future, and I will be having out more build content future at some point. I definitely want to go into the newest war bond and kind of make some builds for that, so definitely subscribe for that. And without further ado, let's get straight into the tier list. So before we start, let's go over the tiers real quick. S tier it's a phenomenal weapon. Performance overall, it definitely handles like most of the enemies in the game as far as chaff goes, and chaff and automatons would be like, you know, like the smaller guys, of course, but also like the devastators. If something can handle devastators very well, you're probably looking at an S tier weapon for the most part, because of the efficiency of how fast you can kill, especially kind of like those rocket and heavy devastators. A tier is above average. There might be one glaring issue with the weapon, but overall it's still a phenomenal weapon against the automatons. But there's just maybe just one little thing that may cause the weapon to be brought down just a bit, and we'll definitely go over those in this tier list. B tier it's just plain Jane, just average performance for the most part. Not saying that there needs to be any changes to the gun, but there might be some changes that you could make to these guns. Like there may be some more issues or whatever to it, but for the most part, it kind of feels like an average gun for the most part. Below average is there definitely needs to be some changes to it because it just underperforms against the automatons. It may even be just a Terminated weapon, you know, like a weapon that does very good against the Terminators with bugs, but not so good against the automatons. But there might be some weapons, and again, like I'll explain this tier list, about like these weapons definitely need some sort of love in the future. And D tier, it's Dookie tier. This is the dog shit tier. You know, there's definitely are some weapons that are really bad against the automatons that I would not use against the automatons, but there might be, you know, like some of these weapons in D tier are really good against bugs actually, right? And we'll kind of go over that. And also there might be a few guns that definitely need to be changed. You know, they definitely need to see some sort of rework and stuff, and I'll explain it in this tier list. So without further ado, let's get started. So the Adjudicator, in my opinion, the Adjudicator is definitely S tier. I'm really liking this gun in its current state because it does, you know, 90 damage. It has 30 in the mag. You know, the recoil is more manageable now, so you're able to hit like breakpoints and headshots like way easier now. Also, it's armor pen, right? I thought this weapon was already really good already, but now it's even better. And in my opinion, it definitely feels like an S tier weapon. And in my opinion, I think it's probably like on the lower end of S tier, but you know, kind of like in between A and S. But I'm gonna edge it towards S because there's really nothing else they can really do to this weapon to make it any better, unless they just keep giving it damage. But at that point, like, you're just power creeping at that point. But overall, I feel like the weapon is very good against the automatons, but you have to hit those breakpoints. So I'm gonna put it in S tier. Blitzer is probably B tier. It does stagger very well. Does, you know, like it's great at close range. Does arc. The problem is that the automaton faction, you don't really have a lot of those chances of getting up close and personal, but whenever you do, I feel like the Blitzer does put in some work. It's just, can you get that close without shredding your health? And especially now, since the changes to health and stuff like that, well, not health, but like how much damage that you take, you know, I feel like the Blitzer's not really made for automatons. It's more of like a bug thing, but it still puts in work, like, overall. The Breaker, I still feel like the Breaker is kind of bad against the automatons, so I'm gonna put it in C. Just overall, just like the damage to it doesn't feel that great, and there's already a shotgun in the game that does very, very well against the automatons. It's an S tier one, and in my opinion, why would you bring the breaker over, for example, like the cookout? And I'll explain why the cookout is S tier. But overall, I feel like, you know, even with the buffs they made to the breaker, I feel like it's more like a bug weapon. But I mean, like, it might have like its use cases where it does, you know, decently well. I think that the cone of it needs to be tightened up a little bit more in order for it to be a true single target shotgun. But in its current state, it's really not that great. The Constitution, it's going to be in D tier. I like the drip of the gun, though. To be honest with you, this is probably like one of my top 5 favorite primaries in the game, because it's just the drippiest gun, right? I like the bolt action. I like the bayonet. I like everything about this gun. It needs a stripper clip, in my opinion. The damage needs to be increased as well. And there's some people that say that it needs armor pin 4. I'm okay with it not having armor pin 4. I just want damage and a faster reload with it. That's just me. But, you know, with that being said, if they didn't do anything to it at all, I would be happy with it, because I don't think it's supposed to be a good gun. It's supposed to be kind of like a shit gun for the most part. It's a ceremonial rifle. It's given to, you know, people who turn 16 years old or become a teenager to enlist. Like, it's not supposed to be great. It's supposed to be kind of dog shit, and I think that's fine, you know. And for folks wanting buffs to it, I agree with you, and these are the buffs that I would want with it. But, you know, I feel like it's, you know, if it never gets buffed, that's fine by me. It in my opinion, does it deserve to be in D tier? Not necessarily, but I don't think it's that great against the automatons. Like, yes, it can one-shot devastators in the head and stuff like that, and you can get some nasty clips with it if you're cracked with aiming. But overall, I just feel like the gun is not that great against the automatons. The cookout is definitely S tier. You're burning and you're staggering, and that's very good against the automatons. They made fire damage way stronger against the automatons, and that's why I'm going to put it in S tier right now, is because with the stagger, you're stopping things from shooting you, and you're doing damage on top of that. It's automatic S tier for me. The counter diligence, or the counter sniper diligence, or the diligence counter sniper, amazing weapon. It's probably the best weapon to use against the automatons, in my opinion. Fantastic damage, hits like a dump truck right now. Just overall great animal economy. You can snipe with it and get headshots with it. You can take on patrols from a fair distance away. It just does very, very well. The chicken walkers and stuff like that, or the scout striders and stuff like that, very, very good to use against. If you're aiming for their crotch, it takes about like 3 to 4 hits, or sometimes even 2 hits at times if they're damaged already. It does a very, very good job at just picking off things, or if you're in the middle of a intense firefight, you can take down things with it. And that's why I'm putting it in the A tier, or sorry, in the S tier slot. The defender, I'm gonna put it on the low side of. Actually, no, I'm gonna put it in B. The reason why I'm kind of bouncing back and forth with the defender, but in my opinion, I do think that it deserves the B tier slot. With the shield, you can maybe make an argument that it should be in A tier, but the problem with the defender is that it's kind of just like a better liberator. It is kind of just like a plain Jane weapon. I don't even think that's supposed to be used really in Helldive, a super Helldive difficulty really, or in the more harder difficulties. But I still see people use it from time to time. By no means is it a bad weapon. It just feels average. So that's why I'm going to put it in B tier. The Jar, or the Dominator, right now it's going to be an S tier. Yes, it's slow. Yes, it has a slow reload, but it hits like a truck still. Takes out the turrets on the walkers, like the big walkers or whatever. The 2 little turrets underneath its chin, or underneath its head. It does really, really well. It can actually take out those striders if you shoot the undercarriage, where the doors open up and drop devastators. It's a phenomenal weapon. Does really good against devastators, staggers, the absolute hell out of things. It's just an overall, just still like a solid weapon. That's why I'm putting it in S tier. The Eruptor is still C tier, in my opinion. It's still mid as fuck. It's not even mid, it's below mid. The Shrapnel is ass on it. They did bring back the Shrapnel, so it's no longer a shitty autocannon primary. It's now a shitty autocannon primary with shitty Shrapnel. And I mean, like, has its use cases, sure. Like, yes, you can blow up fabricators with it and stuff like that, but in my opinion, it still needs to have its original shrapnel back. It looks cooler, it sounds cooler, and it did the damage that it needed to do. By no means was it overpowered. The only thing that the Eruptor needed to change was that it had a lot of ammo to it whenever it first came out, and I understand that nerf. But every nerf after that did not make any sense. The buffs didn't make any sense at all either, because you were just making a shitty autocannon just do more explosive damage, but even then, like, it didn't do enough. And then there were a bunch of glazers, including the mods on the Helldivers Discord, who were just saying, no, guys, it's actually a good gun. It was never a good gun after the nerfs to the shrapnel. They gave back its shrapnel, but it's shitty. The shrapnel looks weird. It doesn't do that much damage to it. Sure, like like its armor pen, but with something that fires this slow and something with a slow fucking reload as this that doesn't fire real fast, your shot should be punchy. Your shot should be just like punch through shit and do a lot of damage. But the problem is that there's none of that that's happening. The explosive crossbow is S tier. They don't need to do anything else to this weapon. It's to be honest with you, it probably is the best weapon in the game currently still. You can one-hand it, so you can use it with a ballistic shield, but you can one-hand it and pick up stuff. It does very, very good against Devastators, even groups of them. It's just a phenomenal weapon, and it blows up fabricators. It's a very good weapon overall. Definitely use it. The Halt, I do think it's probably S tier, and the reason why is because the stun of this gun is insane. It is a fantastic support. It doubles as a support, and just like an overall, just like a really good shotgun. Like, it does like, I think like 20-ish less damage than the Punisher. And in my opinion, if a gun is doing 20 less damage than a Punisher, and you can switch between Flechette, that supposedly, I think it overpenetrates, and stun rounds. Now when I talk about stagger, we're talking about stun, like keeping something in place, so you can like either line up other stratagems. Like you can just spam this into a group, and then just switch to a stratagem to take them out, or a support weapon. I find this weapon to be very, very good against the automatons. I also find this weapon to be very, very good against the Terminids and Odo, and like a lot of these other YouTubers who are giving shit to this weapon. I just don't understand this. I don't understand this at all. I understand that they're like, Odo specifically, he was saying that, like the glazers are glazing the, like the devs again and World Expectations. There's also the other end of the spectrum where you're glazing the people who just want an easier time at Super Helldive difficulty. And I do think that we have to think about the real possibility of power creep in the game. And I think that we have to be very, very careful going forward. But that's a whole other topic for a whole other video. The Halt is S tier. End of story. It is by far one of the best shotguns in the game. Okay, it rivals things like the Cookout. Okay, because of the support that it brings to the automaton front. And in my opinion, like, you just can't ignore the stun. You just cannot ignore the stun and the damage that it does. It's a phenomenal weapon. Definitely use it on Super Helldive difficulty against the automatons. The Incendiary Breaker, I think, is really bad against the automatons. This is mainly for bugs, really, right? Because the bugs, you can just spray and pray into a crowd, and you get like a lot of kills. And against the automatons, there's no stagger to it at all. You're just burning stuff. And in my opinion, like, just use the Cookout, because the Cookout does what the Incendiary Breaker does, just way better. The Carbine, I'm probably going to put it in D tier. The reason why is because, like, even though I do find this gun to be way better on Terminids, like A tier, like below A tier in my opinion, or at A tier levels, and the reason why I think it's not that great against the automatons, the gun just jumps all over the place, and for Terminids, that's not that big of a deal, because you're just spraying and praying into a group, right? That's chasing you down. And it's a really good chaff gun against the Terminids. But against automatons, you have what they call Devastators, and Devastators have medium armor pen. This thing is light armor penetration. So now you have to aim for headshots. And you can't really aim for headshots with this gun. Like, sure, you can like, beam like their legs or like their limbs or stuff like that, and do break points and stuff like that. To me, that's too much work for something that I can just bring something else that just affects the Devastators a little bit more. Or like, I would take a gun that just does like an area of effect, and like I don't have to think, right? And that's why I'm putting the Liberator right here at the bottom currently, because, you know, unless they do something drastic to it, like either give it more ammo and or give it some sort of underbarrel like a grenade launcher, I think that'd be kind of sick. But other than that, you know, that's not gonna happen. You know, like for the most part, I think it's gonna remain just a D tier against the automatons. Liberator Concussive, I do think it's A. It doesn't kill, but it's a great CC tool, and that's all that matters. 60 rounds, just spray into a crowd, CC everything in front of you, and you don't have to worry about it. You know, you could just be like the support team member and just CC everything in front of you, and then set up things for like stratagems and such. So I'm putting A tier, and the reason why I'm putting an A tier is because like it doesn't kill that well, but like the CC on it is just absolutely out of this mind, like really good. Liberator, plain Jane, you know, it's okay. You know, I actually think that this is probably better than the Liberator Carbine, just simply because the shots are slower, so you're able to hit headshots against the Devastators a little more consistently. Other than that, there's nothing really cool about the Liberator. It's just kind of meh for the most part. So I'm gonna put it in B tier. The Punisher got its projectile stuff reverted, but there seems to be a problem with the actual projectile itself. It seems to have some sort of, what do I call it? Or like, what would you call it? Just like proximity detonation. So like once it gets to a target that you're shooting at, it'll just prematurely explode in front of it. It still does like the damage, but it might not do as much damage. And I think that's the problem. So with that being said, you know, it still does work, but I'm gonna have to put it in A tier. Once they get rid of that, you know, that proximity detonation to the actual projectile itself, then it'll move up to S tier. But for the time being, it's definitely gonna have to be A tier. The Pummeler, I don't think it's terrible. Like I think like on bugs, it's probably better, but I still think this gun is still good. It needs to have its stagger brought back to where it was. By no means do I think it's garbage. I just think that, you know, the stagger is just inconsistent. But with that being said, like the stagger is still there and you're spraying stuff down, so you don't notice it that often, in my opinion. Now again, I haven't used this weapon in like a fairly long time, but you know, from what I'm seeing is that, like, you know, and from what I'm still remembering, even though the stagger got nerfed, it's not that bad. It definitely needs to go back to the way it used to be as far as stagger goes, but it's not terrible. If it got a stagger back, it probably would be S tier, because you just run a shield with it and just beam people in the head with it, or like beam Devastators in the head with it while being protected by a shield. I actually do think that would give the ballistic shield more than just what it is right now, because it's kind of shitty. But overall, I think the Pummeler's A tier. For the time being, probably low A to B, kind of like in between those two, but for the most part, just low A. The Purifier is S tier. This gun is ridiculous. You know, I did say that the Explosive Cross was probably the best gun in the game. This definitely rivals it. But you have a charge up that does an enormous amount of damage. The explosion radius of it, whenever it's fully charged, can be used for crowd control. Plus, you can also use this as an auto rifle or like a spam. Like it's basically Scorcher, the Scorcher, but with a charge up feature, and that's really good. Because the charge up feature is good for taking out bigger targets or groups of enemies, and if something's really close up to you, you can just spam fire the gun. And other than that, like, it's a phenomenal weapon. This gun used to be absolute dog shit. Now it's like one of the best guns in the game, and some would even say the best gun in the game. The Punisher, I believe it's B tier, and the reason why I say this B tier, like, yes, you can use it against the automatons, but to be honest with you, if the cookout exists, why use anything but, you know, like, why use the Punisher at that point? Because you're still getting the stagger with the cookout, it's just you're burning things. And the burning things is probably going to be the same, you know, maybe like a slightly higher TTK, but you can kind of just shoot, go back into cover, and you'll be fine, right? This is where like the Punisher kind of falls apart at on the automatons ends. I still think the Punisher's S tier against the bugs, but against the automatons though, it's really not that great. It kind of feels average to me. Like if you aim for breakpoints and legs and stuff like that, like leg shots, it's probably going to be fine. And the stagger is actually pretty good on it. But I'd rather just use the cookout because I don't have to think, right? I can just spray into a group and then like they just die in front of me, right? The reprimand. Okay, this may be controversial opinion, right? I think this gun is A tier. Okay, I don't care what anybody says about this gun. This gun is fine. Okay, the only thing that I would change to it is the bullet deviation. Right now, whenever you shoot a shot, the bullet likes to kind of not go where it needs to go because it's a submachine gun, right? I don't know why they named this a submachine gun whenever it's clearly an auto rifle. You can't two-hand it. You can't one-hand it. You always have to two-hand it, which is weird because every submachine gun that has came out so far has been able to one-hand, right? So that's the Pummeler and the Defender, right? Those guns, well, and the Knight too, but no one gives a fuck about the Knight. But all submachine guns in the game, you can be able to one-hand it. The reprimand, you can't, which is weird to me. So that's the first change I would make to it. And the bullet deviation is annoying, right? Other than that, though, the gun still performs very well, okay? I don't mind the kick because the gun needs the kick because there's 125 damage. That's a lot of damage for one bullet, by the way. It can one-shot Devastator's heads, and in my opinion, if the deviation of the bullets was changed, people would start to see why the gun is actually very good. I think the gun is good now. I just think that there are that there are definitely some, mainly two issues. You should be able to one-hand it. I would love to use this gun with the ballistic shield because that'd be fucking fun. And the bullet deviation needs to definitely change. But other than that, I think the gun is A tier. I don't know why people are saying this gun is garbage and trash and ass. It's a medium armor penetrating gun. It's 125 damage. Get used to the recoil. It's a skill issue at that point, okay? But I will agree. I will compromise. Well, actually, no, I won't compromise. But I will agree with the dissenting side that the bullet deviation is annoying. I agree with that, and it should be able to use one-handed. I agree with that as well. If it's a submachine gun, it should act like a submachine gun, and you should have the properties of it being a submachine gun. The Scorcher is S tier, and full auto mode, fires pretty fast. I think I would probably buff the magazine size, or sorry, well, not buff the magazine size. I would buff the overall amount of magazines that you get by one, and I think it'd be very, very good at that point. But even with that change, I think it's a phenomenal weapon. I think the Purifier definitely outperforms it in my opinion, just because of the charge up and how many things that the Purifier can kill with one charge up shot. But as like an auto rifle, like a plasma auto rifle, I think it's actually kind of good. Like very, very good against the automatons. I just do think that the Purifier kind of outclasses it. So with more ammo to it, I think that it would kind of make it in line with the Purifier. But overall, I think the gun is fantastic. The Scythe, yes. The Scythe is probably still A tier still. I'm like every now and then I'll still use it. You can beam Devastator heads with it. Has basically like unlimited ammo to it. Takes the little guys. It's mainly just more like a chaff weapon than anything else, and it sets things on fire. So again, like the dot damage that you'll be doing to things because you're just hitting something with it constantly. I think that's fantastic, and that's why it's still going to be A tier for me. The Sickle, definitely kind of like the better Liberator. It's A tier in my opinion. Is a laser beam still? There is some like deviation within the lasers, just like a slight deviation, but it's nothing to cry home about necessarily. Plus you have unlimited ammo to it, so like it feels very, very good to use still in my opinion. The Slugger is dog shit, and because the slugs still have deviation in it, it lost its stagger. Well, it still has its stagger, but the deviation to it and the damage fall off of this gun is so bad. And I don't understand why they gave deviation to a slug weapon. I don't understand it still to this day. And I think that needs to change. Once it changes and it gets its damage back as well, I think his damage needs to be increased slightly to like maybe 50, so just 250. Because I think it does 200 now, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but I do think it needs a damage buff as well, regardless. But once they get, especially like the bullet deviation, just completely just knocked out and just revert the absolutely just brain dead change to it, I think it'd be A tier at that point. I think it'd be, like I would use it more often than none. But right now, it doesn't feel that great to use, like, at all still. The spray and pray, do not use it on automaton, is a phenomenal weapon against terminids, but it is a dog shit weapon to use against automatons. I shouldn't have to explain myself any further with this. Light penetration, you're spreading things out. Against automatons, you never want to spread. You want to pinpoint devastator targets and kill them as fast as you can. With the spray and pray, it's very good against the terminids because you have a bunch of small things coming at you, and that's why you want to spray and pray, right? You want to spray into a group and kill them as fast as possible. You can't really do it against automatons, really, unless you're throwing a stratagem down and doing a big explosion, right? But that's AoE, right? This does very, very good against just spraying chaff and stuff like that. The automatons, you're going to need something with preferably medium armor penetration, so that you can handle devastators efficiently. And the spray and pray doesn't offer that, so that's why I'm putting it in D tier. The knight, it feels better. I'm still going to put it in, I'm probably going to put it in C. No, I'm going to put it in D tier. It doesn't feel great to use. I don't know what is with this gun. Like, and even then, like, I kind of forget about it. They did buff it. It's probably better on like terminids than bots, but you can probably use it with a ballistic shield and be fine with it. But for the most part, unless they make this gun something like just rework it completely or give it programmable ammo or something, just give it something cool and interesting, I'm gonna put it in D tier. The tenderizer, probably gonna put it in B tier. I think it's better on terminids than bots. Yes, you can aim for their heads. I get that, right? But at the same time, like, I just don't know. I don't know what it is with the tenderizer specifically. It just kind of sucks. I don't know what it is, but it just does not feel great still. Yes, it's like it's a laser beam and stuff like that, but to be honest with you, if I'm gonna bring the adjudicator over the tenderizer, right? I'm not saying that it's out, that the tenderizer, or I'm not saying that the tenderizer doesn't have a place. It might have a place, sure, but like the thing is that when I'm handling a bunch of medium armor targets, I want to bring something that has medium armor pen to it because that's just an easier time for me, and that's why like I would bring things like the adjudicator, for example, right? And not the tenderizer, but it's okay if you can beam down, devastator heads with efficiency, sure, whatever, it's fine. It is what it is. The torture is just don't. You have to be very up close. Like sure, it does melt devastators, but it's like a shitty shotgun in my opinion. And if you want to use something that does fire and dot damage, just bring the cookout because it staggers. Other than that, if you're a masochist, use it. And if you're looking for a hard time, because automatons use it and a challenge, use it. But overall, I don't think it's that great. The diligence, I do think it's probably A tier right now. It definitely needs to have its damage increased, in my opinion. That way, it could be a headshot machine against devastators. Because right now, it's just like the diligence counter sniper is just the better gun. Just overall, because of the medium armor pen, because of how much damage that it does currently. And the diligence, in my opinion, I still think it needs to have like a slight damage increase because like it's a DMR, like you're firing one shot at a time, and once they buff the damage to it, then it might be an S tier weapon, but it'll be like a high skill, high reward type of gun to use. And Liberator Penetrator, okay, I have been using it more often. Okay, I still don't think it's that great. Okay, people can whine and moan about this gun all they want to. Okay, but in my opinion, it's still not great when the adjudicator exists, because the adjudicator does everything that the Liberator Penetrator does with like less ammo, but it does more damage as medium armor pen, right? But to be fair, I will put it in B tier because it feels average against the automatons. On bugs, I still think that it's dog shit because like why would I bring this over the adjudicator? But against the automatons, because I'm facing up with more medium armor targets, I would rather take this over a Liberator any other day of the week, right? But I will be fair, because a lot of people got upset on my Terminid, you know, seeing how like the Liberator Penetrator was awful and bad and everything. Like, how can you say that? Because the Adjudicator exists. Okay, let me spell it out more. Because the Adjudicator exists, why would I use the Liberator Penetrator? The Adjudicator is literally better at damage. It's better at stagger. It's better at durable damage. It's better in literally everything except for like ammo. That's it, right? I'm going to bring the thing that does more damage. I just will. I will bring the thing that does more damage, and like, yes, the recoil is not as manageable as Liberator Penetrator, right? But if you play with the Adjudicator a lot, you will get better at the recoil control. It's literally a skill issue. If you practice with the Adjudicator, you will get better at it, and you will see why I'm putting it in S tier, okay? But overall, this is my tier list. You guys, tell me what you think in the comment section down below, where I'm right, where I'm wrong, and I'd like to see you guys' opinions. I saw a ton of opinions on the last video. Greatly appreciate that type of engagement. I read through them. Definitely I do. I disagree with a lot of sometimes what people say about certain guns. But there are times where, you might see the couple of guys in there that, understand what I'm saying. They might even disagree and they give their opinion. I appreciate that type of feedback and I implore that. So definitely go down in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about this tier list, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.